Hello, so this is Steve Hall at Realty One Group, and I've got Tane Cabe with me today, and we're going to be talking about HECM mortgages, which most people have no knowledge whatsoever about, and these things are fantastic. I just had a client that we used one of these with, and I'll describe that in the video coming up. But the most important thing right now is there are two buttons on this web page. One that says, I want to sell my house. We'd love to work with you. There's also another button that says, I want to buy a home. The button that you won't see there is, I want to invest in real estate. And this is a very interesting time to do that. So if you want to invest in real estate, I'd love to help you with that. We've got some fantastic resources. So Steve Hall back here again, and I'm here with Tane Cabe from Churchill Mortgage, and we're going to be talking about home equity conversion mortgages. And I apologize if I use some shortened terminology. I'll try to use the long version. Home equity conversion mortgages are a very interesting, I want to call them an animal, because they're totally different than a conventional mortgage. To use a home equity conversion mortgage, you have to be 62 and older. And maybe you're watching this video and you're not 62, but I'm pretty sure you probably know somebody that's 62, maybe an uncle, maybe a cousin, maybe your mother or your father. So if you know somebody that's 62, it'd be important for you to listen to this video. Now, before I get to asking Tane some questions, the reason why I'm so enthusiastic about this vehicle is because I just had a client. She's 75 and he's 80 years old. They were smart enough to know that the annuity that they were living on was only going to last them 3 years before they were in trouble. They were living in a beautiful house in Edmonds, and we sold their house for $620,000. After paying off the mortgage and everything, they had estimated about $500,000. But they didn't have a lot of income, they just had Social Security, so to qualify for a mortgage was going to be extremely difficult for them. We used the home equity conversion mortgage. We bought them a $450,000 house, and their payment on that house was approximately $260,000. And that allowed them to retain the rest of that money for other things. But the unique thing about this is a home equity conversion mortgage has no mortgage payments, ever. It's a non-recourse loan, which will explain that terminology, but it means that they cannot come back to you after the fact. I'll explain it a little bit better. Plus, it has a fixed amortization table, so you can look down and say, I'm going to leave this home in 10 years. What do I get out of my investment of $260,000? So it was a great vehicle for them because basically it gave them cash equity out of their previous purchase. It increased their income because they didn't have a mortgage payment anymore, so that put about $2,000 a month back in their pocket, and they can never be kicked out of the house or foreclosed upon as long as they keep up on the insurance and the tax payments. So it's a fantastic vehicle for anybody that's 62 or older. So that's one of the ways that this can be used. The other way that it can be used very effectively is if you're interested in investments. We've got a fourplex scenario that we'll talk about, but basically you could buy a fourplex for approximately half price of the market price and rent out the other 3 units, and on this scenario we'll be talking about generate $2,225 a month on top of having no mortgage whatsoever and live in one of the units. So that's a powerful tool as well, and we'll talk about the ins and outs of that. The third way that's been used very effectively is what I like to refer to as a warm gift. Now, a lot of people say, look, I'm going to give the house to my children or my grandchildren when I pass away. And that's great to pass that equity on. But one of the ways to use a home equity conversion mortgage is you sell that house and you buy another one, maybe smaller, downsized. There's a lot of people out there that are living in way too big of a home. The maintenance is eating them up and all those kind of things. Pull that equity out and then have that equity to be able to give your grandchild or your son a down payment for a house or your long-term health care or an annuity, whatever it is you want. Okay, so I've been babbling on for a while, but you can tell I'm pretty enthusiastic about what this has done for my client and what we can do with this. So Tane, I want to turn it over to you. Tell me a little bit about when it's appropriate for someone to consider a home equity conversion mortgage, and where did they come from?
Where did they come from? First, when it's appropriate is really everyone should have an opportunity that is a retiree or almost retired to get exposed and be educated on the home equity conversion mortgage. I wrote a book called Double Your Retirement Dollars, and the reason I wrote the book is because many people don't know the program exists. Financial advisors, most real estate agents don't know about it. Steve obviously does. He's a more educated realtor for sure.
I try to do my research.
Right. So the opportunity is for someone to be exposed to it, because I would say you don't know what you don't know until you know it, and so the only way to know it is to be exposed to it and learn about it. And so the home equity conversion mortgage really is appropriate, really for any person, no matter where they're at on the income scale, no matter where they're at on the asset scale, what their net worth is. We've had people that have purchased homes that have Social Security as their income source, and their only cash that they have is maybe a few $1,000s in savings or checking, but yet have a home that's worth $300,000 to $400,000 in equity, a cash sitting there stored in the walls and foundation of their home. So they have a nice net worth, but it's really all sitting in a home, and so they've used that to purchase a home, put 50% down or less depending on their age, and never have a mortgage payment on that home, and then be able to keep the rest of that cash. In fact, just today we're closing one where these people, this is our largest client we've ever had in terms of net worth, but they have several $1 million in liquid assets and are buying just under $600,000 home, and they could pay cash for the home, but they, after being educated on the program, realized this is a great way to preserve their assets that they have and keep their cash. And so when I mean who's it appropriate for, it's appropriate for everyone as long as they feel comfortable with it after knowing the facts on how this program works.
Yeah, so you don't know what you don't know. What we're encouraging you to do is to listen to this video in its entirety, and if any of those scenarios sound familiar to you, get a hold of Tane and find out exactly what your scenario is, because there's no one size that fits all, and there's many different ways to use this tool to help a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us how you can purchase a home using a HECM.
Well, back in 2008, part of the economic stimulus package, try and get our country back on its feet again financially. I think we're still trying, but certainly this was buried deep in that package, and that is where FHA, this is a government-insured loan, FHA was authorized by HUD to start doing these particular programs, a home equity conversion mortgage to purchase a home, to help stimulate the economy and to help spur on purchases for retirees. What I'm seeing and what the industry was seeing was that people are living in too big a home. Steve talked about that. You raised your family in a huge house that now it's just maybe one or two of you, and you have
the roof's going bad and the yard's too much to keep up, and what you really want is a condo on the water.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I can speak to that. I mean, my wife and I just bought a little, not even 1,000 square foot house, so I don't know how it's going to happen, but we're definitely downsizing, and we're a little bit young, but we're still downsizing, and because our kids are, pretty much out of the house. So why have a huge house? And so this has an opportunity for people to buy a home and not have to pay all cash, because as a retiree, you don't want to have a mortgage payment. At least most retirees. Whenever I do a seminar, I ask, do you want a mortgage? Raise your hand, and no one raises their hand. So I'm assuming that you don't want a mortgage either. So if you don't want a mortgage payment, there's only one way to
do it legally, honestly, and ethically.
Right. There's only one way to achieve that, and that's to pay all cash, which is great. but now you've got all this money stored up in the walls and foundation of your home that you can't get to it, and if you need it, it's very difficult to get a mortgage and refinance on a fixed income. There's, now to qualify for a traditional mortgage is very challenging.
Harder than ever.
Yeah, harder than ever. So with that, this home equity conversion mortgage, now you can purchase a home. Qualifying is limited in terms of a traditional mortgage. You don't have to go through as much as you do on a regular mortgage, and you don't have a mortgage payment. So you can basically have your cake and eat it too. You can put about 50% down or less, and again, that's depending on age, but you don't have a mortgage payment as long as you live in the home. Just pay taxes and insurance, like Steve had said. So buying
it's federally insured.
Right, buying the home is, like I said, there are several different scenarios, from people who have a lot of money and net worth to those that don't, and everyone in between. So it's pretty exciting, this particular program, and we're seeing more and more popularity with it. It's just, when you're sort of a little bit ahead of the curve, sometimes you're way ahead of the curve. I mean, I've been doing this for several years, and now it's really starting to kick in, and people are getting exposed
Education's
to it.
Everything.
It is really, yeah. So yeah, that's
well, I mean, I see plenty of people that I visit that are living in a home. They've been in it for 20 years, and it's maybe a 1,500 or a 2,000 square foot home, and it's just the one person there, and the roof's falling apart and the yard's coming apart, and they just don't have the strength to keep it up. And this is a great vehicle for something like that. So what qualifies a person for a home equity conversion mortgage?
Great. So there's an age qualification, and that is you at least need to be 62 years of age, or your spouse needs to be 62. So we've run into people where their spouse is much younger, and that's okay. But one of you at least has to be 62. You have to verify that you have the cash available for the down payment and closing costs, and that cannot come from your mattress. It has to be verifiable cash, that's pretty much it. We do need to verify income to prove residual income that you have. Residual income is how much money do you have left over at the end of the month based on a government formula after paying basic necessities. And so that can be a very small amount. And so that residual income is really just to show that you have enough cash at the end of the month to pay your taxes and insurance. Because what FHA found a few years ago was, yes, even though people don't have a mortgage payment, they may not be able to afford to live there in terms of maintenance and taxes and insurance. So that's a new, since April of last year, it's been around that we need to verify that. So that's really how people qualify. Most people qualify. If there's credit issues or bankruptcies or short sales, there are ways of doing this loan still. We just closed one where someone had a short sale 9 months ago, and there was extenuating circumstances. If we have extenuating circumstances, and the extenuating circumstance here was the attorney that they worked with recommended they do a short sale. So because we got a letter from the attorney, we're able to do that. And so there are ways to get around being able to buy a home with situations or scenarios like that.
Okay, so I want to change gears and talk about a specific scenario here. So we did a little a scenario on a fourplex. So this scenario was about buying a fourplex, and since you're the numbers guy and I'm not, why don't you go through how this all works?
Yeah. So what we did was we ran a scenario, and you can use the home equity conversion mortgage to purchase not only a single unit, single family residence, but also up to 4 units, and not have a mortgage payment. So if you can imagine not having a mortgage payment on 4 units, you'd have to live in one, and the other 3 you could receive monthly rental income from. So receiving income with no monthly expense is pretty exciting. Of course, you'll have taxes and insurance, but in our scenario, what we figured was that if we had a fourplex, the rental income from 3 of the 4 units would be about $2,525. The purchase price on this particular home would be $530,000, and the cash that you would need to come up with to purchase this particular property for closing costs, mortgage insurance, and down payment would be $256,168. Now, how that $2,530 $256,168 breaks out is you have three items. You have the down payment, which is $239,000 of that, and $30. You have closing costs of around $38.88, which includes your title and appraisal and those various closing costs. And then you have mortgage insurance, which is 2.5% of the purchase price. Here, the purchase price is $530,000, so that would be $13,250. And a lot of times people will ask me, Tane, why am I paying mortgage insurance? That doesn't make any sense. I'm putting all this money down. Well, this mortgage insurance is there because there's no payment due on this loan, but interest will be added. The interest charges will be added to the balance. So the balance rises over time. And as the balance rises over time, eventually you could run into a scenario several years from now, but that scenario could be that you owe more now on the home than you can sell it for. And if you sold your home at that point in time, any additional interest over and above the sales price would be paid by the FHA insurance that you have. So it's real important to have that understanding that you're protected.
This mortgage insurance ensures that you have no downside on this particular transaction.
Right.
So there's only an upside, no downside.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the downside is you're potentially not going to have any equity several years down the road, but the upside is in this scenario you've received monthly rental income for years and years, and so at the end of the day, if you leave this home either through passing away or you have to move out of it for whatever reason, if there's equity, it's your equity. If there's equity, that would go to your estate. If there's no equity or a situation where there's negative equity, that's where the FHA insurance would cover you. So
so let's talk about equity position over time, because the interesting thing is the way that it works. There's some pretty positive attributes all the way through. I like to refer to this as a fixed amortization schedule, which I don't know is technically the term. But after the first year, your out-of-pocket investment was $256,168. Your equity position after the first year is $309.87. And the reason that is because there's a 4% appreciation built into it. So the fifth year, we're at $398,574. So we're still in a positive position. 10 years down the road, we're at $241. So I mean, we're only slightly going down. 15 years, we're at $206. At 20 years in, you've still got $136,000 in equity, and you haven't made one mortgage payment. And in this scenario, you're earning $2,525 a month for your three renters. Pretty nice scenario, and you're totally secure in your living situation.
Right.
So in that scenario, I think it's a wonderful way to go. So the other scenario that I wanted to go into a little bit, that was one that's in your book, that was really wonderful, was what I called a warm gift, or what you called a warm gift. And so it was basically a grandmother, and her grandson came to her and said, "Grandma, I want to buy a house. Is there any chance that you could help me with a down payment?" And Grandma had just been doing some research, like good grandmas do, and she found out that she could sell her house, pull the equity out, buy another house. She wanted to buy something smaller, which made more sense to her and closer to the kids, and give him his down payment for his house. So it worked out really, really well. And the way she described it was she could give him a warm gift while she was still alive and enjoy them having a house and being closer to them and enjoying their new house, instead of giving them a gift when she passes away. So I thought that was a wonderful scenario. So kind of talk to us about how that would work.
Yeah, well, in that scenario, she sells her house, and because she owns her home, has a lot of equity. That equity, then part of it would go to purchase another home, but then part of it she could give and did give to her grandson to purchase a new home. What I found, and this was an interesting lady, this German lady that said this to me, and it just made so much sense, because she said, well, why would I want to, give it to them when I'm dead? I mean, that's literally what she said.
Can't enjoy that very much.
I've got a cold hand, and now I'd rather be able to see my grandson and the smile on his face and enjoying his new home while I'm alive. And I was able to participate in and allowing that dream to happen. And I get to enjoy it with them. And so that was the big kind of epiphany for me when she said that. I'm like, wow,
never thought about it that way.
There. Yeah, it's really really cool. So yeah, that was a great little story and fun for me to learn about that. And I'm sure, and I have run across people that have done that, where they've set up little trust funds or college funds for their grandkids, and just being able to provide that to them while they're alive and able to enjoy it with them. Yeah.
Right. The one other scenario that I heard of that I thought was pretty smart was using that money to fund long-term health care payments as well.
Right.
If you're pretty healthy and strong, but you're definitely going to have some long-term health care, which is expensive these days, you could finance that out, which would be great.
Yeah. So
how are other ways that a borrower can access funds from a home equity conversion loan?
Well, if someone were to stay in their home and refinance, they could do that. And they could actually access cash through a lump sum or through a line of credit. One way that this can be done too is a little bit more sophisticated move, where if someone wants to purchase a home, they can buy a home, put their 50% down or whatever the formula is, and this is based on age. The older you are, the less money down. But in this scenario, what they could do is there's two types of programs. There's a fixed rate option, which is sort of the obvious option to take advantage of, especially on a purchase. But there's another option. It's a line of credit. It is a variable rate, but it's the way that it works is they could put more down than required when they purchase this home, and then have excess cash available in the form of a line of credit. Now, that line of credit is not like a regular line of credit that you might have heard of before, where you can use it as you need it. That's true. You can do the same with this. However, this one, it increases in the amount available to you. So let's say someone buys a home and they have they're required to put $200,000 down on a $400,000 home. They decide to put $300,000 down. So now they've got $100,000 in a line of credit available to them. That $100,000, if they don't use it and let it sit there, will continue to grow each year. Right now, the growth rate, depending on how it's set up, is around 5%.
Nice.
And that 5%, so in other words, that $100,000 this time next year will be $105,000, then $110,000, $12,000 plus, and it compounds on itself. So, if you're on the younger side of the spectrum,
it's a very effective savings plan.
It's great, yeah.
Great rate.
If you don't want to buy long-term care insurance because it is really expensive and you need to qualify for that, this is a great option as an alternative, because that money will grow and it's guaranteed and will never be canceled like some lines of credit. You've probably heard of when we had the mortgage bump. We had the housing issue. Everyone that I know of that had a line of credit had it canceled. This won't ever be canceled, and it's guaranteed. So yeah, that's a great way to, it's a little bit more sophisticated way to set it up, but it's worth learning about.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I've got a lot of people in my circle of influence that are older, that their financial advisor told them, look, save up all this money and then you get a 10% return on your investment, and you can live on that the rest of your life. The only problem is now they're not getting a 10%, and so they're going, my plan's broken. What do I do now? Oh boy, I'm in trouble. I'm going to be working the rest of my life, or
beans and rice.
Right. And so they're really pissed off because they had a perfect plan and they executed it exactly the way they were supposed to, and it's broken. So that's an option I didn't know existed. Okay.
Yeah, it is. I've had a couple people do that recently, and it's a great way to go.
5%, huh?
And it's dependent upon what the interest rate does. So the interest rate does fluctuate, but the growth rate is always 1.25% above the interest rate on the loan. So if your rate, the interest rate on this loan is going to be capped somewhere around 8.5, maybe 8.8, somewhere around there. So if the rate does go to 8, that means your growth rate's 9.25. So that's, you know, always a little bit ahead of what you would be paying on the loan, or interest would be accruing out on the loan. You're not paying anything.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about your book, because I think some of the people that are watching this want a little bit more information and probably like to read about it as well. So tell me a little bit about how somebody would get your book, and tell me some of the reasons why they would want to read it.
Yeah, well, one way to get the book is to go to nopaymentbook.com/Steve.
Okay.
And you can just enter your information there on the page, and we'll be alerted at our office, and we'll send you a copy out free, so you don't have to pay for it. And then you can learn about it. We'll highlight some chapters, so if you're like me, you've got a lot of books on your nightstand and you don't get to them all, we can just highlight what chapters to get to on this, so you don't have to read the whole book. So, you know, there's really 3 or 4 key chapters that if you will read those, it'll just basically review what we talked about today and give you a clear picture on how it'll work. And then, yeah, so the book is, the second part of the book goes into different strategies, a little bit like the one I just mentioned about the line of credit scenario, and some more sophisticated sort of strategies with it. The first section is really about how to purchase a home, and different stories, sort of Reader's Digest-ish, on people that have done this type of program before.
Okay. One other question that pops into my head: how does a home equity conversion loan impact your Social Security or your Medicare? Because a lot of people are concerned how that would impact.
Yeah, it really doesn't impact it at all. We've checked with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and all the above, and they sometimes give mixed answers, because they just give you an answer that pops in their head. But the reality is, the home equity conversion mortgages is not going to impact your Social Security benefits, Medicare. If you did that line of credit and you started pulling money out of that, that's not income, it's not taxable, because they're considered loan proceeds.
Excellent.
It's not a bad thing. So it's good. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, so I think we probably want to wrap this up. We've been talking about this long enough for now. I'm sure if people are interested, they want to get a hold of you or me. My name's Stephen Hall, and my direct number is 425-770-9466.
Yeah, and if you want a copy of the book, just go to nopaymentbook.com / or / I guess, Steve, and that will get you a free copy of the book. And if you want to reach out to me and have any questions, you can reach me at my office at Churchill Mortgage, and that's 800-490-4287.
Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope this information was valuable to you. If you know anybody that's 62, I'd suggest it would be very good to get them this information so they're knowledgeable about what the options are. If you're interested in buying or selling a home or investing in a home, please pick up the phone and give me a call. I'd love to help you. We research all kinds of financial packages and financial tools that'll make sure it's a good deal for you. Again, my name's Steve Hall, 425-770-9466. Thanks for your time.